Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how we're always talking about malware and all the different types out there?
Yeah, definitely. Always something new popping up.
Well, today we're diving into one that's particularly interesting. It's called ToxicPanda.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that one. Pretty nasty.
Yeah, and get this, it specifically targets Android devices.
Hmm. Interesting. Android, huh?
Yeah, and what makes it even more fascinating is it's kind of breaking the mold.
Breaking the mold. How so?
Well, you see, usually malware comes from a specific region and tends to target that same region, right?
Yeah, that's the typical pattern.
Right. But ToxicPanda is different. Researchers believe it was developed by a Chinese-speaking group.
Okay, so Chinese-speaking developers got it.
But here's the kicker. Instead of targeting Asia, this malware is popping up in Europe and Latin America.
Really? That's unusual. What countries specifically?
Primarily Italy and Portugal.
Huh. Italy and Portugal. That's interesting. And who are they going after in those places?
Retail banking users, just everyday people trying to manage their money.
So, Chinese-speaking developers targeting European and South American banking users. That's not something you see every day. Any theories on why this strange target choice?
Well, unfortunately, malware doesn't come with a handy motive explainer. But there's another twist to this story that might give us some clues.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
ToxicPanda shares some uncanny similarities with another piece of Android malware, TG Toxic.
TG Toxic, wasn't that the one stealing money from crypto wallets?
That's the one. And because they have some shared code and even commands, researchers think they might be connected.
Connected how? Like created by the same group?
Potentially, yeah. Or at least by very closely affiliated teams. It's like a malware family reunion.
A malware family reunion. I like that. So if TG Toxic was the prototype, is Toxic Panda like the upgraded version?
You could say that. It seems to be a bit stripped down, missing some of TG Toxic's features,
Well,
but it's
maybe.
also got some brand new commands.
So either it's still in development, still figuring itself out, or they're making some serious changes.
Exactly. And even though it might be in those awkward teenage years of development, it's already causing some real damage out there.
Yeah, no kidding. What kind of damage are we talking about?
Well, one of the ways it's spreading is pretty sneaky.
Oh, how so?
It disguises itself as popular apps like Google Chrome, Visa, even 99 Speed Mart.
Whoa, those are some big names. And how are they getting people to download these fake apps?
They set up shop on those fake App Store pages, the ones that look super official.
Ugh, those are the worst.
Hmm.
I can see how people would fall for that. You think you're getting a legitimate app.
Yeah, and bam, you've just welcomed Toxic Panda onto your phone. So once this wolf in sheep's clothing is on your phone, what happens then?
Well, this is where it gets a little technical. Toxic Panda takes advantage of Android's accessibility services.
Accessibility services, aren't those designed to make phones easier to use for people with disabilities?
Yeah, exactly. But in the wrong hands, they become a powerful tool for control.
So it's taking something good and twisting it for bad? Not cool. But what exactly does that give Toxic Panda access to?
Think of it like this. It basically has free reign to steal your data, change what you see on your screen, and even control what you type.
So like someone has remote access to your entire digital life.
Exactly. And it gets even scarier. Remember those one-time passwords, those OTPs that are supposed to be that extra layer of security?
Yeah, those codes they send you for two-factor authentication.
Right. Well, Toxic Panda can grab those too.
Really? Even from authenticator apps?
Yep. Whether they're set by text or through an app, Toxic Panda can intercept them. So those OTPs, which are supposed to protect your accounts, it's like a thief intercepting a package delivery. They get to it before you do.
That's unsettling. So someone could think they're logging into their bank app safely, but Toxic Panda's already snatched the code. It's like a digital heist in action.
A very accurate analogy.
Yeah.
And stealing data and bypassing security is just the beginning for Toxic Panda. Researchers discovered its main goal is something called on-device fraud, ODF.
On-device fraud? That doesn't sound good.
It's not. Basically, it lets the attackers take control of your device and make unauthorized transactions.
So they're draining your bank account without you even knowing. That's terrifying.
Yeah, and the researchers at CLEFI, the group who did this analysis, they actually managed to get into Toxic Panda's command and control panel.
They got into the control panel. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was impressive. They basically got a backstage pass to the whole operation.
Wow. So what did they see?
Well, the panel itself was in Chinese, which further points to the developer's origins. But here's the really creepy part. The panel had a graphical interface. It was a literal dashboard where they could monitor and control all the infected devices.
They could just sit there watching as they empty people's bank accounts.
Well, they could see everything from the device's model and location to being able to remotely access any device for ODF.
That's just crazy. So they've got this real-time view of their victims. It's like something straight out of a spy movie, kind of wild.
Yeah, it is kind of unsettling, and it gets even more so. Despite all of this, researchers think Toxic Panda is still under development.
Wait, really? So it's causing all this chaos now, but it's only going to get worse.
That's the thought, yeah. They found logging information, dead code, debugging files, all signs that they're still working on it.
Okay, that's a chilling thought. So, like, what does that even mean for the average person, just trying to use their Android phone?
Well, it's a valid concern for sure. The threat landscape's always evolving.
Right. Always something new to worry about.
But the good news is, researchers are fighting back. They're coming up with new tools to counter these threats. One of the most promising ones is DIVA.
Diva. Yeah, I think I've heard of that. Detector of victim-specific accessibility, right? It's like a digital guardian angel for our phones.
In a way, yeah. DIVA's specifically designed to detect malware that exploits accessibility features on Android. Exactly how Toxic Panda gets in.
So ToxicPanda is using accessibility services for evil. Diva is using them for good. That's kind of cool. How does it work?
Imagine you've got a security guard, right? They can spot suspicious activity, and they can also understand the criminal's playbook, so they can predict what the thief's going to do next. That's basically DIVA in the digital world.
Okay. So it can kind of think like the malware?
Pretty much. It uses something called dynamic execution traces and symbolic execution.
That sounds complicated.
Basically, it's like DIVA creates a virtual version of your phone and then runs the malware on it to see what it does. This way, it can see those telltale signs of malicious activity, like when it intercepts OTPs or accesses sensitive data.
So it's like setting a trap, letting the malware think it's on a real phone.
Exactly. And the cool thing about DIVA is it doesn't just detect malware, it can also tell exactly who's being targeted. Like a detective that can not only identify the culprit, but also track down all their victims.
Wow, that's really impressive. But DV doesn't stop there, right? I remember reading something about persistence mechanisms.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. DIVA can also detect those. Those sneaky tricks malware uses to stay on your phone even when you try to remove it?
Yeah, it's like they set up booby traps.
Exactly. And DIVA can disarm those traps.
So even if Toxic Panda tries to hide, Diva can still find it and get rid of it. That's reassuring. But with all this technical stuff, it's easy to get overwhelmed. What can I actually do to protect myself from something like Toxic Panda?
You're right. It's all about taking practical steps. The first thing, be really careful where you download apps from.
You mean like stick to the official app stores?
Exactly, like Google Play or other reputable ones.
But even those aren't perfect, right? I've heard about fake apps getting through sometimes.
Yeah, that can happen. That's why it's important to be a little bit of a detective before you hit that download button.
How do you mean?
Look closely at the developer's name, read the user reviews, check the number of downloads. If something feels off, trust your gut.
So it's like checking the nutrition label before you eat something.
Exactly. You wouldn't eat something that looks suspicious. And just like you need regular checkups, keep your phone updated with the latest security patches. Those often have fixes for new vulnerabilities.
Yeah, those updates can be annoying, but I guess they're important.
They are. They're like vitamins for your phone. And this one might seem obvious, but be super careful about clicking links in emails or texts.
Especially from people I don't know, right?
Exactly. Those can lead you straight into a trap, like those fake app stores we were talking about.
Yeah, one wrong click and you're in trouble.
And finally, consider using a mobile security app, like an antivirus for your phone.
Wait, I need an antivirus for my phone too.
It's not just about viruses. It's more like a bodyguard for your phone. It can scan for malware, block bad websites, and alert you if there's any danger.
So official app stores, detective skills, regular updates, link skepticism, and a bodyguard app. That's a lot to remember.
It is, but the more you know about these threats, the better you can protect yourself.
Yeah, this has been a real eye-opener. So what does all this mean for the future? We're just going to be stuck in this endless cycle of attacks and defenses?
That's the million-dollar question. What we're seeing with Toxic Panda shows us that malware is getting more sophisticated.
So the bad guys are upping their game.
That's one way to put it. But
Yeah.
so are the good guys. Researchers are always working on new techniques and tools to fight back. It's an ongoing game of cat and mouse.
But what about the app stores? Don't they have a responsibility to keep malware like this out?
Absolutely. They're the gatekeepers in a
Yeah.
way. They do their best to vet apps and make sure they're safe. But as we've seen, even the most secure stores can be infiltrated.
So it's a constant battle. Is there any hope for a future where we don't have to worry about all this?
Well, it is a tough battle for sure. But those researchers are pretty incredible, always coming up with new ways to fight back.
Yeah, it's kind of inspiring, right? Like they're the tech superheroes and the malware's the villain.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And like any good superhero, they've always got new gadgets and strategies.
So it's like a constant evolution. Both sides are pushing each other.
Exactly.
But what about us? I mean, how can everyday users like us contribute? It feels like we're kind of powerless.
Well, that's where knowledge comes in. The more you know about these threats, the better prepared you are. It's like knowing the rules of the game so you don't fall into the traps.
So we need to be our own superheroes, armed with information.
Exactly, yeah. We all have a role to play.
Well, this deep dive into Toxic Panda has definitely opened my eyes. It's amazing, all this stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, this whole other world out there.
It is. So to wrap things up, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's that knowledge is power.
Mm.
The more we understand about these threats, the better we can protect ourselves.
Mm.
This was just one example, but there's so much more out there.
Right, the threat landscape is always changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe.
Well said. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into Toxic Panda. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope you learned something new today. Until next time, remember, knowledge is your best defense.